My husband left me at my birthday party, now I'm living on a billionaire's yacht.
Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
Valerie adjusted her dress in front of the mirror in the women's restroom at Olivia's corner, forcing herself to smile, though she could feel it looked as flat and lifeless as a paper mask. She had once dreamed of a warm 30-second birthday flowers, cake, a loving look from her husband, but tonight, there was only a table for 6, silent faces, and a tray of cold tapas. She returned to the table. Her mother-in-law, Angela, was picking slices of manchego cheese onto her plate, face blank. Her brother-in-law, Stephen, was typing under the table, giggling now and then as if texting someone. Her husband, James, sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, checking his watch with a look of boredom. No cake. No flowers. No one said happy birthday. Only Isabel, her best friend from college, gently squeezed her hand and whispered. Happy birthday, Valerie. Thank you, she replied with a crooked smile. James leaned over and took a small box from his coat pocket. No one said anything. Valerie leaned forward slightly. Was it a surprise gift? A sign that love still remained. He pushed the box toward her. For you. Valerie opened it. A set of keys. Keys to an apartment on Lexington Avenue. I've rented it. You can move there starting tomorrow. She froze. Wait. I don't understand. James looked directly at her, coldly. I think, we should spend some time apart. A knife to the chest. Valerie looked around. The mother-in-law continued to serve herself, unfazed. Stephen glanced up and shrugged like it wasn't a surprise. Isabel still held her hand tightly under the table. You mean, separate, she whispered. Call it what you want. I just think it makes sense. But why? Is something wrong between us? I thought. James cut her off. Valerie, not everything has to have a clear problem. I just need space. No one said anything else. Valerie awkwardly picked up her wine glass, trying to swallow the lump in her throat. But it was as if her throat had closed up. She looked at Isabel, her vision starting to blur. Then her mother-in-law finally spoke. You should eat, Valerie. It won't taste good cold. That sentence was a slap in the face. After all these years, her mother-in-law still only called her Valerie, like a stranger. She set the glass down and stood up. Excuse me. I need to use the restroom. No one stopped her. No one said a word. Valerie stood in the women's restroom, leaning against the wall. No tears came. Only a hollow feeling spreading from her chest to her stomach. Was this how it ended? 10 years of being someone's wife, building a life together, sharing everything, only to be cast aside like a burden. A knock on the door. Valerie, are you okay? Isabel's voice. Yeah. I'll be right out. She opened the door. Isabel gave her a gentle hug. Are you okay? No. But I don't want anyone to see me like this. He doesn't have the right to do this to you. And yet he did. On my birthday. Valerie let out a bitter laugh. Do you want to go home? Valerie shook her head. I'll go back. I want to see if he has anything else planned. She returned to the table and sat down. James turned to her. I'll ask the lawyer to draw up the paperwork. Let's handle this quickly. Lawyer? She frowned. I just think we should be clear from the start. Avoid complications. Stephen snorted. James always has a plan for everything, huh? Angela nodded. What's meant to happen will happen. Best to keep it dignified for both sides. Valerie was speechless. So, everyone knew before I did? No one answered. Silence was the most bitter response. After the dinner, James said nothing more. He pulled out his wallet and placed a credit card on the table. I'm heading out. Call a taxi, or get someone to take you home. Valerie stepped outside. The New York night breeze slipped through her thin collar. She stood under the streetlight, watching couples laugh and chat inside the restaurant. Each burst of laughter felt like mockery. A quiet figure approached. Valerie? It was Claire, a former co-worker from James's company. Are you here with someone? No. Alone. What about you? I was at a birthday dinner. But it's over now. Claire looked at her, hesitating slightly. Are you okay? Valerie smiled, emotionless. I just got a very special gift tonight, legal separation papers. Valerie let out a dry laugh. Claire fell silent. Then she nodded, very faintly. I had a feeling this was coming. Probably because of Lucy, she said quietly. Valerie narrowed her eyes. Who? Lucy. James's assistant. I've seen them out together a lot, dinner, outings. Valerie's heart pounded. You mean, they? Claire nodded. Sorry. I thought you already knew. Valerie didn't go home right away. She sat on a stone bench in Washington Square Park, hands trembling as she lit a cigarette even though she had quit 3 years ago. Smoke swirled around her face, as cloudy as the future she now faced. She didn't cry. She didn't have the strength. A message came in. From James. I hope you can accept and handle everything like an adult. I don't want this to get messy. Lucy also doesn't want you to get hurt. Valerie looked at the screen. Read it 3 times. Her name had been replaced with someone else's Lucy in the same message begging her not to get hurt. Life truly knew how to be cruel. It was late. Valerie stood up, caught the last taxi, her mind spinning with 1,000 shattered emotions. Inside her, something had collapsed forever. But something else small and quiet had begun to awaken. The apartment on the 10th floor of the Park Avenue building was now as empty as a failed theater stage. Valerie sat in the corner of the sofa without turning on the lights, letting the streetlight outside seep through the curtains. Near midnight, James walked in, coat over his shoulder, phone in hand, no trace of guilt on his face. You're still up? He asked, as if nothing had happened hours before. Valerie looked up, her voice hoarse. Can you explain everything? I want to know it all. James took off his watch, set it on the table, and slowly sat across from her. All right. I'll be honest. He looked up, not avoiding her gaze, but his eyes were cold and soulless. I'm living with Lucy. The room cracked apart. Every word was like a rock thrown into a still lake. What? I moved in 2 weeks ago. I thought you'd noticed. Lucy, your assistant. Yes. But she's not just my assistant anymore. Valerie clenched her fists. She's so young, James. She's even been to our house. She and I used to get along. I didn't make you do that. And you cheated on me while I was still cooking your dinners and doing your laundry every night. James leaned back and looked at the ceiling. Valerie, you don't give me the same feelings you used to. What did you say? You're too safe. Too proper. You're great at taking care of things, but it's become boring. Lucy makes me want to wake up next to her every day. Valerie laughed a choked, hollow laugh. Is that so? And you chose my birthday to announce this? It made sense. You're not tied down anymore. No kids. No debts. We don't even share the company anymore. Valerie froze. Wait, what do you mean we don't share the company? James looked at her and sighed. I told the board you were taking an unpaid leave. And, that you wouldn't be coming back. What? She stood up. Valerie, the company's under my name. You're listed as a co-founder in title only. I own it fully. You cut me out of the very place I worked for 8 years. I didn't want this to get ugly. You can find a new path. She stared at him like he was a stranger. Our savings account, is there money left? James stayed silent. James. I withdrew most of it. For a new investment project with Lucy. You took the money without asking me. The account's under my name. You signed power of attorney last year, remember? Valerie collapsed back onto the couch. Every layer of trust peeled away like skin torn from the bone. After a long pause, James stood, grabbed his coat. I'll stay over there tonight. You can start packing in the next few days. That's it? Yeah. What else is there to say? He left. The door closed softly. But to Valerie, it was the sound of a world crumbling. The next morning, she went to her in-laws' house in the Upper East Side. Knocked 3 times. Then a 4th. Angela opened the door. What are you doing here? Valerie held back her tears. I just want to talk. With you. About James? Yes. Angela shook her head. You should have known this would happen sooner or later. He needs someone more compatible. Lucy is young, energetic. You never liked me. Because you always tried to control everything. From how James dressed to how he worked. Valerie tried to stay composed. Please, I just need a place to stay for a few days. I'll leave after that. I'm sorry. This house isn't convenient for that. And with that, she closed the door. No hug. No words of comfort. That afternoon, Valerie called the old group of friends who used to travel together, who used to throw monthly barbecue parties. No one answered. Only a message came from Alicia, her once best friend. Valerie, I think it's best if you step back quietly. James has a lot of influence now. Don't let yourself be seen as the desperate one. The message felt like a slap. Valerie sat motionless in a small cafe near Times Square. The waiter asked her 3 times before she shook her head and declined to order anything. She called Peter, a college friend from finance school who once offered to help her find a job. Peter, it's Valerie. Oh, hey. Do you know if anywhere's hiring temp staff right now? Actually, we just filled all our positions. But you once said. You understand, James is a major partner now. I don't want to get in the middle. Thanks, she said and hung up, her heart turning cold. That weekend, she packed her things, just a few outfits, her laptop, and an old journal. The apartment, once full of laughter, now felt like a heap of discarded memories. She didn't cry. She just felt like a ghost wandering through her own life. She rented a small room in the Lower East Side, a densely populated immigrant neighborhood, cheap and noisy. The landlady was Sophia, a tough widow in her 60s from Louisiana. The room small. Warm in winter, hot in summer. That's fine, ma'am. Got a boyfriend? I'm divorced. Even better. A man who brings you misery. Let him go and lighten your soul. Sophia's words blew through the ashes in Valerie's heart. For the first time in days, she smiled just a little. On her first night in the tiny room, Valerie opened her laptop and pulled up a job search site. She began rewriting her resume. The line, Chief Financial Officer, Miller Group, was still there. But now, it meant nothing. She deleted it. Typed. Freelancer seeking new opportunities. The phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Valerie, this is Edward Thompson, James's lawyer. What do you want? We've sent over the draft for the asset division agreement. You should sign it within 5 days. Email it to me. I advise you not to make excessive demands. Everything is clearly stated. I know. And I'll find my own lawyer. She hung up. A breeze slipped in through the window, carrying a chill that spring hadn't chased away yet. But this time, she didn't shiver. The first week in Lower East Side, Valerie couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned on the hard bed, the pillow lumpy, the ceiling blotched with mildew. Every time she closed her eyes, James's words echoed in her skull. "I'm living with Lucy. You don't inspire me anymore. I withdrew money from the account." Each phrase was a sharp blade, slicing into her pride. One Monday morning, Valerie decided to try visiting her in-laws again. She wore a white blouse, dark slacks, hair neatly combed. She thought, if she still showed respect, they'd at least grant her a few minutes of conversation. The gate of the Upper East Side townhouse was familiar. She rang the bell. After a while, the housekeeper, Rachel, opened the door. "Miss Valerie," she said, visibly uneasy. "I'm here to speak to James's mother. Just for a few minutes." Rachel hesitated. "Ma'am said she's not receiving uninvited guests." "I'm not a guest. I'm family." Rachel sighed and quietly shut the gate. Valerie stood frozen. 10 minutes passed. The gate never reopened. She walked back, humiliation swelling in her chest. On the way, Valerie stopped at Café Blue in Williamsburg. She needed to see a familiar face, someone who once saw her as a person of value. Then she spotted a group of old friends, Andrea, Brianna, and Olivia, sitting in a corner, sipping coffee. She took a deep breath and approached. "Hi, everyone." They looked up. No one smiled. "Valerie." Brianna spoke first. "I just happened to be nearby. Mind if I join you for a moment?" Olivia looked at Andrea, then gave a small nod. Valerie sat down, trying to act casual. "I heard, you moved out of Park Avenue?" Andrea asked. "Yeah." Valerie smiled faintly. "A new space suits me better. James and Lucy are about to launch a new project in Miami. Did you hear?" Valerie nodded. "I know." Brianna sipped her coffee, then sighed. "Valerie. I'll be honest. You should step back. Gracefully. James has connections. The more you cling, the worse it looks." "You think I'm clinging?" Andrea chimed in. "It's not meant badly. But in this industry, once you're out, it's better to bow out quietly. Lucy is doing your job well. And she has James backing her." Valerie looked at each of them. "So, you're all on his side?" Brianna answered softly. "It's not about sides. It's just, no one wants to go up against someone powerful." Valerie stood up. "Thanks. Now I know exactly where I stand." No one stopped her. No one said another word. She walked out of the cafe, clutching her purse tightly. Her face had gone cold, but inside was a whirlwind of emotion. Not only had she been betrayed in her marriage, but now she was cast out by those who used to flatter and celebrate her. All those parties, handshakes, compliments, just performance. She stepped into the Lower East Side subway station. A train whistle echoed from the tracks, as if to remind her, time waits for no one, not even those who've lost everything. That evening, she began looking for a new place to stay. Sophia's room was cheap, but too small and musty. She found a rooftop unit, barely over 300 square feet, with peeling walls and a leaky ceiling, but at least it was hers. The landlord, Raymond Harris, was in his 50s, with a smoker's voice. "What's your job?" he asked. "Currently job hunting." "Not stable, huh?" "Not yet. But I'll pay on time." Raymond looked her over, then nodded. "All right. But I want double the deposit." "Agreed," she replied without hesitation. The day she moved in, it rained lightly. Drops ran down the windowpane, soaking into the wall. Valerie looked around the bare room. No bed, no table, just a thin mattress and an old shelf. She called the only person still willing to listen, Isabel. Isabel. I just moved again. You okay? Okay. The room smells musty and the walls leak. But I'm okay. Want me to come over? No. I just want to know, has anyone ever truly cared about me? Valerie. I'm still here. But you know, some battles don't need a victor. Let time speak for you. Thank you, she whispered. A week later, she strolled through Central Park. The April breeze swayed the willow trees. A young couple embraced on a bench. A group of students played soccer, laughing. Valerie stopped at the lake. She remembered walks with James, hand in hand. It was all past now, but the memories lingered like weeds. A voice called from behind. Valerie? She turned. It was Marcus, an old friend of James, once a civil engineer, now running his own firm. It's been a while, he smiled. Yeah. How are you? Same as always. You? Unemployed, separated, living in a rooftop flat. Still blunt as ever. No point sugarcoating things anymore. Marcus paused. James has changed a lot. I'm not defending him, but I feel sorry for you. Don't be. I'm doing just fine without him. He looked at her. If you need anything, just message me. I know a few places hiring. Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. They said goodbye. Valerie sat on a park bench, pulled out a crust of dry bread and a cheap yogurt cup. She never thought she'd have to eat like this, but this was her reality now. That night, she opened her phone. A message from an unknown number. Valerie. It's Lucy. I'm sorry. But when real love comes, we shouldn't hold back because of morality. Valerie stared at the screen. Her hand trembled slightly. Not from jealousy. But from disgust. Disgust at this hypocrisy dressed in pretty words. She had poured tea for Lucy, passed her cookies, while James sat there, eyes gleaming like nothing was wrong. They had performed right inside her own home. She set the phone on the table. No reply. She wasn't playing their twisted little drama anymore. Valerie started every morning with a cup of cheap instant coffee and a slice of dry bread dipped in olive salt. She got up at 6 a.m., went down to the Lower East Side station, and walked more than 20 minutes to Benjamin's copy shop on Broadway, where she did freelance bookkeeping by the hour. The job wasn't hard, just entering numbers into Excel, checking VAT invoices, but the pay was just enough to survive. The shop owner, Benjamin Lewis, was a bald, pot-bellied man who constantly complained about rising electricity costs. Valerie, this month's invoices are a mess. Double-check them for me. Don't leave errors like last time. Yes, I'll review everything again. Good. I can't afford to pay someone to fix them. Valerie nodded, saying nothing more. Every time she heard Mr. Benjamin's grumbling voice, she was reminded of the board meetings where she used to stand and present financial strategies as CFO. Now, her desk was a corner by the photocopy machine, next to a damp, moldy wall. At night, she worked at a small diner called Caroline's Kitchen, near Union Square. The owner, Mrs. Caroline, a widowed woman in her 60s, was known for her rich New York stew. She was cold but fair, and never wavered from her rules. Customers are royalty, but rudeness is out. Mess up your job. You're done. Can't apologize. You're out. Do well. I'll throw in some smoked ham. Valerie didn't complain. She waited tables, poured wine, took orders. Every night, her legs ached, her arms were sore, but she still smiled every time a customer called her over. One rainy evening, as she wiped down a table, a tall man walked in, coat wet, holding a canvas bag. "Table for two, please," he said. "Right this way," she replied, leading him to a window seat. When she returned with water, he looked up. Valerie? She blinked in surprise. Daniel? It's me. Thompson. From finance school in Boston, 2010. Oh my God, she nearly dropped the water jug. Thompson had once been in her study group smart, witty, and later moved to New York as a financial advisor for startups. They'd had good times, but it never went anywhere. He glanced around. So, you work here now? Yeah. Just temporarily. I thought you were doing big things in the US. People think a lot of things. Thompson paused. What happened with James? You know. News travels fast in this industry. I'd heard some things. But I didn't expect to see you. Waiting tables, she smiled faintly. You can say it. No, I just mean, it's a shame. You were always the smart one in our group. Valerie refilled his glass, saying nothing. Inside, something stirred, not pain, but shame from being pitted. That night, back in her rented room, Valerie opened her laptop and started looking up free courses. She knew she had to do more than just survive. She found a free advanced Excel class at the Lower East Side Community Center, held every Saturday morning. She signed up immediately. The instructor was Michael Robinson, a retired engineer with gray hair and reading glasses, who spoke slowly but clearly. Today we'll be learning about VLOOKUP, index, and match. Raise your hand if you're unfamiliar. Valerie raised her hand. She was the only one. No worries. You'll get it. The key is patience. Thank you, sir, she said quietly. After class, Mr. Michael stopped her. Where do you work? Copy shop and diner. You've got accounting knowledge. After this course, try applying to a software company. I've been looking, but I'm not confident. You're more capable than most I've met. Don't let one fall make you forget your worth. Valerie was moved. His voice reminded her of her father's, the one who once told her, "You're the only one who's ever made me believe a woman could do finance better than a man." One afternoon, after leaving the copy shop, she ran into Sarah, an old subordinate from Miller Group. Sarah was sitting in a cafe, and stood up the moment she saw her. Valerie. Sarah, long time no see. How have you been? Better than before. I heard, you left the company. More like pushed out. Sarah looked down. James, he's colder than I thought. I used to think he was a good guy. Being good once doesn't mean someone stays good forever. Would you like me to recommend you to some places? Maybe later. I'm starting over right now. Sarah nodded. Still, you've always inspired me. I learned so much working under you. Thank you. Oh, James and Lucy just bought a new car. They posted it online. Valerie just smiled. Everyone lives their own life. I just want to afford a fan that doesn't make noise. Valerie walked home. That night, the sky was clear but the wind howled. On the rooftop balcony, she stood looking out at the city, the lights blurring, car horns echoing in the distance. She took a deep breath and felt something stir within her, not hatred, but the determination to prove she couldn't be broken. Sunday morning, Valerie sat on the rooftop balcony of her room, holding a cheap cup of coffee, phone resting on her lap. She'd just woken from a sleepless night, the wind rattling her window for hours. As the first light broke over the rooftops, she unlocked her phone, a habit that always made her heart heavy. Social media notifications flooded in. Lucy Sullivan updated her profile photo. James Miller shared, "Love always comes at the right time, never with the wrong person. New beginning." She tapped on it. A wedding photo. Lucy in a tight white dress, James in a gray suit, standing on a beach in Miami Beach, both beaming. Hundreds of likes, dozens of congratulatory comments. So beautiful together. Love always wins in the end. Amazing how they overcame all odds. Valerie couldn't breathe, not from jealousy, but from the shameless lies being celebrated like a fairy tale. A message came in. From Lucy. I'm sure you've seen it. When it's the right person, it doesn't matter how late it comes. Valerie thought back to when she first met Lucy. Why hadn't she seen the signs? Everything now felt like one disgusting performance, and she, Valerie, was the naive audience member fooled until the final act. That afternoon, while serving at Caroline's kitchen, Valerie brought a bowl of stew to table 3 when she overheard whispers behind her. Isn't that James Miller's ex-wife? Really? I thought she moved overseas. No, my friend said she's working here now. Sad, right? Valerie pretended not to hear. But her chest tightened. Customers are royalty, Caroline always said. And royalty had the right to whisper about someone else's downfall. After her shift, she slumped in the corner of the kitchen, sweat on her brow, shoulders aching. Caroline walked in, handing her a cold glass of water. Drink up. You're pale. Thank you. I heard them. I heard everything they said. I don't care anymore. Don't lie. You've got pride. Of course you care. But that's also why you still have a future. Valerie drank the water and smiled, grateful. Sometimes, one person seeing your worth is enough to stand against the world. That night, back home, Valerie opened her laptop and deleted her social media apps from the screen. She didn't want to see the wedding photos or the comments, not because it hurt, but because it was humiliating. A thought crossed her mind: I was too kind. Monday morning was gray. Valerie walked through the rain to Excel class at the community center. Today's lesson: pivot tables, a key tool in data analysis. Mr. Michael guided the class slowly, his eyes always patient. After class, he called her over. Valerie, I have a suggestion. Yes. I know someone, Ernest Phillips. He's the president of a mid-sized accounting software company. They're looking for a data assistant. No degree required, just hard work and honesty. You think I should try? Not should. Must, he smiled. 3 days later, Valerie arrived at Phillips Accounting. A modest 4-story building in the Bronx, not luxurious, but clean and orderly. The receptionist led her to a waiting room. An older man entered, silver hair, slightly hunched. He wore a gray cardigan, not a suit, and carried a notepad. You must be Valerie. Yes, sir. I'm Ernest Phillips. Michael Robinson sent me your resume. I trust him. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Not yet. I have a few questions. He sat down. You were a CFO. Why apply as a trainee now? Because I need to start over. I've lost a lot, but I haven't lost my ability to learn. Are you willing to accept below average pay? As long as I'm learning and working honestly. Any issue working under someone younger? As long as they're fair. Ernest looked at her for a long moment. All right. You start next Monday. Valerie was stunned. Really? Here, I don't pick the best. I pick the ones who observe and endure. Valerie bowed in gratitude. For the first time in months, she felt a little light return to her heart. That evening, she returned to Caroline's kitchen and informed Mrs. Caroline. I'll be leaving next week. I got hired at a company. Caroline nodded. Finally. Good people don't stay down forever. Thank you for giving me a chance when no one else would. You earned it. I don't hand things out for free. Valerie gave her a soft hug, then cleaned the kitchen thoroughly. On her way home, she walked through the familiar streets of the Lower East Side, seeing them, for the first time, not as gray, but full of promise. Back home, she turned on her phone. A message had arrived from an unknown number. Ms. Valerie. I'm Frederick Gray, a journalist from New York Business Journal. I'd like to interview you about your journey as a finance entrepreneur. I heard you used to be a very influential figure before your mysterious withdrawal. Valerie read the message over and over. She typed a line, then deleted it. In the end, she only replied, "I don't have anything worth telling yet. Reach out again in 3 years." On her first day at Phillips Accounting, Valerie arrived more than an hour early. She stood in front of the modest but tidy building in the Bronx. The air was still misty. She adjusted her shirt collar, her hair tied neatly back, no makeup, just a subtle earth-toned lipstick. She didn't want to draw attention. She was here to learn, not to be remembered. The receptionist, a young woman named Laura, greeted her with a cheerful smile. "Good morning, Miss Valerie. The boss is waiting for you on the second floor." "Thank you." Valerie nodded, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. The elevator rose slowly. Her heart pounded. Even though she had once stood before a boardroom full of investors, today she felt nervous. Because this time, she was starting over without power, without reputation, without privilege. The office door opened. Ernest Phillips sat at his desk, holding a large cup of coffee, looking just as casual as he had during the interview. "Have a seat, Valerie." "Thank you, sir. You'll be in charge of checking input data for the account adding software. You'll need to look for errors, fix Excel formatting issues, and note any problems that come up." "Understood." "You'll report to Daniel Smith, the IT team leader. The kid's a bit messy but smart. Don't let it bother you." Valerie gave a slight smile. "I don't mind working with smart people." "Good. Oh, and here, everyone washes their own cup and eats lunch in the company cafeteria. No private offices, no assistants. I don't need anything but a desk. Then we'll get along just fine." Ernest winked. Daniel Smith was around 28, messy hair, wrinkled shirt, always wearing headphones and typing like a machine. When Valerie walked into the IT team room, he didn't even look up. "Valerie?" he asked, still staring at the screen. "Yes. Your computer's over there. The password is Phillips 2023. The files are in the test_files folder. Each one is labeled with an entry date check for number errors, unit issues, and formula formatting. Note everything in the summary sheet. Is there a manual or guide?" "No. But I trust you're smart enough." Valerie said nothing more. She opened the computer, familiarized herself with the software interface. Everything was new, but not unfamiliar. Excel had always been her strength. And she was ready to start again from scratch. Mid-morning, Ernest passed by her desk and stopped. "All good?" "Very good. Did you know Daniel said you spotted errors faster than all 3 of your predecessors combined? Maybe because I spent 5 years handling budget spreadsheets for a company." "Ah yes. You used to work for James Miller?" Valerie paused for a beat. "Yes. I met him once at a conference. Too slick for my taste." "Exactly. Rest assured, we don't judge anyone by their past here." Valerie nodded. A bit of weight lifted from her chest. This was the first place in months where she didn't feel the need to keep her head down. Lunch in the company cafeteria was a self-serve pasta bar, vegetable soup, and sliced fruit. She sat next to a chubby, curly-haired accountant named Isabel Reynolds, who spoke loudly. "New here?" Isabel asked while spooning soup. "Yeah, I started this morning. I've been here 8 years. The boss is kind, the pay's steady. Only downside is it's a little too drama-free." "Drama?" "Office romances and stuff. This place is boring. Everyone's married." Valerie chuckled. "That sounds like a good thing." "True. And what's your name again?" "Valerie." "That name sounds familiar. Wait, are you James Miller's ex-wife?" Valerie paused for a second, then smiled. Yes. Isabel's eyes widened. Seriously? It's old news. Oh, okay. I get it. But don't worry, no one stabs anyone in the back here. We forget stuff right after we talk about it. I hope so. In the afternoon, Daniel came by her desk and handed her a stack of papers. Morning error log. You're fast. Just habit. You used to be the CFO at Miller, right? Yes. Do you resent being an intern now? No. If you're resentful, you don't learn. Daniel stared at her. You make me feel ashamed. Why? Because I used to think I was the Excel prodigy. Valerie laughed genuinely, for the first time in weeks. After work, she waited for the bus at Port Authority bus terminal. It was drizzling. She pulled up her collar and hugged her bag. A middle-aged man next to her asked. Heading home from work? Yes. You look tired. Just a little worn out. It'll be sunny tomorrow. New York never rains more than 2 days in a row. She nodded. She had no idea who the stranger was, but that quiet line felt like a reminder, every storm passes. That night, she opened her laptop and wrote in her journal. First day at work. Felt like a first grader in a new classroom. Some people are sweet, some a little arrogant, but at least no one tried to put me down. For the first time in months, I came home not feeling like a shadow. She looked out the window. The rooftop was still cold. But in her heart, a small light had started to glow enough to keep the darkness from swallowing everything. 3 years. Not long for someone standing still. But for Valerie, 3 years was a whole lifetime relived. She got up at 5:30 every morning, did simple squats in her cramped apartment, then drank a glass of warm lemon water. She arrived at the company by 7:30, before even the security guard. She listened to English podcasts on the bus, studied financial analysis during lunch breaks, and learned Python at night when the lights of the Lower East Side started dimming due to energy-saving policies. Ernest Phillips noticed quickly, Valerie was no ordinary employee. After 8 months, he called her into his office, straight to the point. You're being promoted to Data Quality Control Lead. You'll communicate directly with clients. Thank you for trusting me. It's not about trust. It's clear as day. In the second year, she became project deployment team leader. Daniel now jokingly called her boss in team meetings. Valerie could probably analyze the royal wedding budget if needed. Just give me the champagne receipts, she replied, and the room burst out laughing. But she didn't let the laughter distract her. After work, she still read industry reports, studied how private equity funds operated, and learned from regional CFOs in the software sector. In the third year, Ernest made her regional deputy CFO of New York. Her salary quadrupled compared to when she started as an intern. You're the only person I've seen rise from the bottom without stepping on anyone along the way. Because I know what it feels like to be stepped on. You'll take over when I retire. I'm still learning. You've finished learning. Now it's time to lead. She didn't post anything on social media. No photos, no statuses. But she quietly kept track of James and Lucy through business news, leaked documents, and old connections in the industry. They didn't know she was still around. One winter afternoon, Daniel knocked on her office door, holding a folder. Boss, a real estate firm just sent over a proposal for financial management software. Big project. But the file is odd. What's odd about it? Investor documents are vague. Some financial reports were recently edited. But they're requesting a meeting directly with the CFO. What's the name? James Miller. Her heart twinged. James Miller. Exactly. She closed the folder, voice calm. Set up the meeting. I'll attend. That evening, Valerie sat alone in her new apartment, the first property in her name. Not big, not luxurious, but warmly lit, no leaky ceiling, no moldy walls. On the table was a glass of red wine and her open laptop. She flipped through the documents, unclear shareholder lists, questionable funding sources, a balance sheet with several suspicious line items. But she wasn't in a rush. Time was her ally now. The next day, while reviewing Miller's cash flow statements, she got a message from Isabel, the only friend from her old life who still kept in touch. "Valerie, are you planning to do anything about James?" "Not sure yet. They're throwing a party to celebrate the new project. I just got an invite." "Are you going?" "No. But if you show up, they'll freak out." Valerie stared at the screen for a while. Then typed back, "I'm not going." A few days later, Ernest announced, "Valerie, next week we have a meeting with Miller." They sent the names of 3 attendees. Who? James Miller, CEO. Lucy Sullivan, CFO. And a lawyer named George Parker. "All right. I'll be ready." The meeting took place in the main conference room on the 3rd floor. Valerie arrived early, checked the presentation system, and arranged the documents. When the door opened, she looked up. James walked in first, hands in his pockets, eyes full of arrogance. Lucy followed, elegantly dressed, her hair tied in a high bun. Both froze when they saw Valerie standing at the head of the table, the overhead lights casting a calm glow on her face. James smiled, slightly awkward. "Valerie. Ah, Valerie. You work here now." "Hello, James." "Hello, Lucy," she nodded, without a smile. Lucy stiffened, her lips trembling. "I didn't know you were at Phillips." "You're the partner seeking funding approval?" she asked, her expression unchanged. James adjusted his tie and nodded. "Yes. Looking forward to working together. I've heard Phillips is very thorough in finance." "We are. Especially when there are signs of irregularities." "What do you mean?" "Shall we begin? I'll be the one reviewing the financial documents for this project." James glanced at Lucy. She lowered her head. Valerie said nothing else. She opened her laptop and projected the investment summary onto the screen. Her voice was cold, clear, each word like a mirror reflecting the past. "As you can see, the Q2 report contains a line item for borrowed capital with an unclear source. The collateral assets are listed twice, and the March advertising expenses exceeded the budget by 73%. This requires a detailed explanation." Lucy's face turned pale. "What documents would you like us to provide?" "All original invoices, loan contracts, and a 6-month cash flow analysis." After the meeting, James followed her out into the hallway. "Valerie, I didn't expect to see you like this." "What were you expecting?" "I thought you didn't want anything to do with this industry anymore." "You were wrong. I just had to find myself again after losing it for someone who didn't deserve it." James swallowed hard. "Anyway, congratulations. You've really made it." "No. I haven't made it. But at least I didn't have to compromise my ethics to rise." She turned and walked away without waiting for a reply. That night, back in her apartment, Valerie sat on the balcony, spring breeze brushing through her now longer hair. She poured a glass of champagne, took a sip, and opened her laptop. A new message from Daniel had arrived. "The Miller project will need to be audited again. You flagged signs of cash flow manipulation. We're putting the partnership on hold." She replied simply. "Good." A week after the first meeting with Miller, the atmosphere at Phillips Accounting was tense but curious. Valerie's reunion with James and Lucy had sparked some murmurs among staff. But she didn't pay attention. She had work to do. On Tuesday morning, Ernest knocked on Valerie's office door, holding a stack of documents. More reports from Miller. They've submitted a revised file. Thank you. Valerie took the papers and quickly flipped through them. Do you think I should step in directly? Ernest asked, hesitantly. Not yet. I want to see how long they think they can hide. Ernest nodded. You're right to be cautious. I've seen men try to buy off finance officers with a dinner party. Valerie gave a cold, sharp smile. James used to have more elaborate schemes than that. But you know what? He never truly understood who I am. That afternoon, the preliminary review meeting for the project file was held in a small conference room. Attendees included Valerie, Daniel, the head of legal, and representatives from Miller Capital James and Lucy. James entered first, polite to the point of stiffness. Lucy followed, her eyes uneasy when they met Valerie's. The air felt like a massive block of ice had just been carried into the small room. Valerie opened the meeting in a calm but firm tone. Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Rogers, Regional Chief Financial Officer. I'll be leading today's meeting and have the final say on whether we proceed with your project. James smiled, resting his hand lightly on the table. It's an honor to see you again in this new role. I don't work here for honor, James. Let's get to the point. She looked him directly in the eyes. Lucy swallowed and opened her folder. This is the updated financial report. We've also attached cash flow analyses and the relevant supporting documents. Daniel glanced at Valerie, signaling readiness. She gave a slight nod. She pulled out her own set of documents, already printed. Based on the previous file and this revised version, I've identified 3 inconsistencies. She slid the papers across to them. First, there's data duplication in the external consulting expenses for Q2 and Q3, same invoice code, but different content. James quickly looked at Lucy. Probably a reporting error. Valerie didn't change her tone. Second, a $2.1 million loan from an offshore shell company, Global Ventures LLC, wasn't listed in the short-term debt schedule. Lucy spoke up. That's a bridge loan. It hasn't been recorded in this period yet. And third, Valerie continued, the adjusted payroll for August includes 2 employees not on the official staff list, yet total compensation rose by $73,000. She stared at them. I don't need an explanation now. I want written verification. If it's incomplete, I'm obligated to report this to the Independent Audit Committee. James exhaled. Valerie, there's no need to be so harsh. After all, doesn't exempt you from an audit. I'm just saying you may be working at a great company now, but sometimes, another opportunity, a partnership, for instance, could take you even higher. Valerie gave a soft laugh. You're trying to bribe me with a hint of power? No. Just suggesting collaboration. Then I decline. And if you ever use that tone again, I'll file a formal report. Lucy's hands trembled. James said nothing more. After the meeting, Valerie returned to her office, placed the file on her desk, and stared out the window. The sky over New York was overcast, not blinding, but soft. She sat silently for a few minutes, then called Daniel. Prepare the independent audit request form for me. I'll sign it on Friday. You, sure? I'm sure. This is no longer personal. It's a responsibility. That evening, she called Isabel. Hello. Isabel. I just turned down a deal with James. You probably don't want to hear me scream right now. Go ahead. He totally deserved that. Not yet. He still thinks he can get away. Isabel went quiet for a moment, then softly asked. Valerie, do you hate him? No. I just feel sorry for myself for ever seeing him as my whole world. On Thursday morning, she received an email from the audit office. They confirmed receipt of Valerie's documentation and stated they would begin their review of Miller Capital's finances within 15 days. Daniel stood outside her office, his eyes lit up. "We're really doing this?" "Yes. And this time, I'm not backing down." James called her that night. His number was still blocked. She hesitated, then set the phone down and didn't answer. A few moments later, a message came through. "Valerie, please don't turn this into a war. You've already won. That should be enough." She read it over and over, then typed a single reply. "You're wrong. I don't want war. I want the truth to speak at the right time, in the right way." 18 days after the meeting with Miller Capital, the first report from the Independent Audit Office arrived in the company's inbox. Valerie was reviewing the end-of-quarter report when Daniel knocked on her door, his expression serious. "Valerie, you need to see this." He placed a printed copy of the 42-page preliminary report on her desk, red markings all over. She flipped through it quickly. "There are signs of financial fraud related to the bridge loan between Miller Capital and Global Ventures LLC, involving inflated cash flow and falsified shareholder documents." She was silent. Daniel lowered his voice. "You know this is the point where you can decide whether to continue or stop." Valerie closed the report, looked at him. "Stop. To keep being the betrayed woman who stayed silent." 3 days later, Ernest invited her into his office. He sat behind his desk and set aside his reading glasses. "You're sure you want to send this report to the Financial Supervisory Authority?" "Absolutely, sir. This is going to sound the alarm. Miller has ties to several banks. That's exactly why we can't ignore it." He nodded. "You remind me of myself when I was young. Afraid of no one, as long as I had a righteous cause." Valerie smiled lightly. "The difference is I've already been buried in the mud." Ernest raised his hand. "Then show them this. From the mud, you grew back like steel, not weeds." The following week, New York's financial press exploded. Miller Capital under investigation for financial fraud tied to offshore loans and falsified shareholder records. Regulatory Committee confirms receipt of whistleblower report. James tried to fight back with a televised statement, claiming it was all an accounting misunderstanding, and that someone with a grudge was sabotaging them. Valerie sat in her office, watching the clip on her laptop, her chin resting lightly in her hand. She called Daniel. "Call our lawyers. Ask them to prepare the comparative analysis file." "What are you planning?" "To submit a detailed cash flow breakdown. I want the investigators to know this wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate fraud." That afternoon, Isabel sent her a short message. "You did it?" Valerie simply replied. "No. I just did my job." 1 week later, the district attorney's office issued a summons for James and Lucy for investigative questioning. The media exploded. On the front page of the Wall Street Journal, a bold headline read, "Finance Queen Valerie Rogers the whistleblower behind Miller's fall." Ernest walked into her office holding a copy of the newspaper. "You can't stay anonymous forever." Valerie closed her laptop. "I don't need to be anonymous. I just don't need noise." Lucy vanished from social media. Her once busy Instagram filled with travel photos, designer bags, and so-called inspirational quotes suddenly went dark. Mutual friends fell silent too, avoiding any mention of her. Valerie received a short email. No subject, no signature. But she knew who wrote it. "I didn't think it would go this far. I'm sorry. You win." She hit delete. No need to reply. Because for Valerie, victory wasn't about declarations, it was when the betrayer retreated in silence on their own. That night, she stood alone on her balcony. New York stretched out below her like a shimmering map. The traffic still moved, life went on, but within her was a silence filled with pride. Daniel called, his voice light. You know, at first, I thought it was already impressive that you survived. But you didn't just survive. You made people bow their heads. Valerie looked out at the distant sky. No one needs to bow to me, Daniel. They just need to stop rising by stepping on others. The next morning, at a regional finance conference, Valerie walked into the auditorium as a guest speaker. She wore a perfectly tailored gray suit, her hair in a low bun, her eyes steady and unwavering. The host introduced her. Please welcome Valerie Rogers, someone who fell from the top but refused to be buried. Today, she'll share how to rebuild from zero. She stepped up to the podium. Looked out at the hundreds of faces before her. Then spoke slowly. I used to think, if I lost my title, my position, who would I be? But after 3 years, I've realized, it's only when you have nothing left to lose that you find out who you really are. Applause broke out, long, firm, and certain. That evening, back at her apartment, she opened a physical letter, a rarity in today's digital world. It was from Ernest. Valerie, I'm officially retiring next month. The board has approved your appointment as Chief Financial Officer of the entire system. Congratulations and thank you for making this company something to be proud of. She folded the letter and looked up at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she felt true peace. Life can throw us to the bottom with betrayal, humiliation, and loss. But what matters isn't how far we fall, it's how we choose to stand back up. Valerie didn't get revenge through screaming matches or public drama. She answered the past with success, with unwavering integrity and radiant capability. The wrongdoers will eventually expose themselves. And those who were once buried will shine, if they remain steadfast, disciplined, and never accept being diminished.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.